Greetings, leaders and friends of the 100 Million Soul Movement. It's a pleasure to be with you today as we share all that God has done in the month of October. Look, praying for you as we move into this last transition, the last 2 months of the year. And we ask for God's blessing to be upon you. You know, Jeremiah 3 and verse 15 says, God gives shepherds after his own heart. And I think about the incredible national leaders that God has given us across the world. And this verse just so symbolizes who they are, shepherds after God's own heart. Each and every one of them, as they lead their nation and raise up teams, they have such wonderful God-giving hearts and honoring to the Lord. And that's such a blessing. And I just want to encourage and honor them as we start this October report. You know, one of the highlights of this month, and I love this phrase, it says, pictures are worth 1,000 words. And I love seeing pictures of the ministry in the remote villages, churches being planted, people living in these remote areas being reached with the gospel. And that just so symbolizes the heart of so many of our national leaders as churches that are being planted. I think of the Brother Yul from Indonesia, reaching 3 unreached people groups this month. And I think he's still there, and they'll be planting a church among those unreached people groups. Just so exciting what's going on in India, and our leaders, our national leader and our regional leaders, just going into these remote areas, reaching people with the gospel, planting churches. In Pakistan, Brother Yusuf, planting churches. He's planted almost 800 across the country, and just amazing work of God. Bishop Simon in Tanzania, such a heart for the remote villages. Brother Daniel in Kenya, and some of the pictures and reports coming in this month. And, you know, a generator and plastic chairs and preaching the gospel, and then boom, planting a church. Just so encouraging and so inspiring. And that's just really the tip of the iceberg. Another thing that just so moves my heart with pictures is the ministry in schools, especially in Africa, because the doors are so open. Brother Daniel and his wife Beatrice, a great outreach in the month of October, going to so many schools, thousands of young people in Kenya being reached with the gospel in the month of October. Just incredible pictures and very moving and reports. Pastor Moses in Uganda is in schools this week. He's already been to 3, seen a couple hundred people saved already, and we'll be ministering throughout the rest of this week in 3 more schools. So I want to continue to pray for him. You know, back to Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 10 is just such a wonderful scripture that so symbolizes the 100 million soul movement. The Lord said to Jeremiah, I have set you over the nations and over the kingdoms to root out and to pull down, to destroy and to throw down, to build and to plant. And that scripture in itself is just, as we look at the 100 million soul movement, and we're not in any hurry. This is the hand of the Lord in just taking the time to plant and to build. It's just so encouraging for me in my interaction with Pastor Tim of Australia, who oversees Oceania, T.F. Lim, who oversees the 21 nations in Asia, Banamba, who oversees India. And just taking this scripture to heart, the planting and the building, just slow and steady. And one of my closest friends here is a brother from India who attends the same church. And him and I had coffee several months ago, and I shared with him the vision of 100 million soul movement, and especially in India. And he just looked at me and just like, wow. You know, for an American who's just so ambitious, he said, your vision for India, he said, you're really looking at a 30-year plan. I said, absolutely. And he was just so encouraging to me, because he said, Brian, that's how people in India think. It's generational. And in order to really transform a nation, it's going to take like 30 years. And I just so appreciate these leaders of ours to plant and to build. In closing, I want to just ask you again, pray for our leaders, Pastor Nabal and Natalie in Ukraine, and all that's going on. I was talking to him this week, communicating, and in Odessa, they've lost 50 to 60% of the power and the heat, and now they're fast approaching the brutal winters of the Ukraine war. Is just so atrocious, and the effects of war are just heartbreaking and heart-wrenching. So we need to be praying for our leaders in the Ukraine. And if God moves upon your heart to supply generators so they can keep the electricity and, more importantly, the heat as they go through this winter for his people in his congregation, the people of his city, and the people of his nation of the Ukraine. But they covet your prayers, and let's just ask God for just his favor and blessing upon Pastors Nabal and Natalie. And I want to close with this. I was quickened this morning. Karen, one of our executive team members, put a thing on her Facebook because today is November 1st, 11/1, which obviously speaks of, Hebrews 11:1, faith, the faith chapter. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence, things not seen. We're moving by faith. We're living by faith. We don't live by sight, but we live and we walk by faith. And what a privilege it is as the director to walk with men and women, our national leaders, our executive team, men and women of great faith who have chosen to just follow the Lord and to walk by faith. Again, thank you. Again, covet your prayers for the Ukraine and the people around the world and all that God is doing. God bless you. Thank you again. We love you.